Hey there, story seekers and cosmic thrill chasers. If you love tales where humanity flips the galaxy on its head, smash that like button, drop a comment about your favorite alien species, and subscribe for more HFY stories that prove one thing: humans are the real apex predators. Now, let's begin. The jungle of Var 9 breathed like a living furnace. Every leaf dripped with moisture that smelled faintly metallic, every shadow shimmered with the promise of teeth. The alien hunting squad moved through the undergrowth in precise formation, armor humming with quiet menace. To them, this world was a trophy ground, a planet infamous for one creature alone. The apex predator, Commander Yulrek murmured, his voice amplified inside his helmet. 3 meters tall. Carbon exoskeleton. Hunts in silence. It said even starship scanners can't track it. Then we'll mount its head on the Dominion wall, one of his soldiers replied. The squad chuckled, their laughter swallowed by the dense fog. They called themselves the Wrath. In their culture, hunting wasn't just sport, it was proof of supremacy. They had felled leviathans on ice moons, burned through hive queens in asteroid hives. But Var 9 was different. No Wrath expedition had ever returned from it intact. Yulrek had no intention of joining the statistics. He activated his visor's heat map. Pulses of red and gold bloomed across the forest floor. Life everywhere, yes, but one signal stood out: massive, erratic, moving in a predatory loop. Target confirmed, he said. Grid 17. Deploy snare drones. Metallic spheres zipped through the trees, releasing webbed energy fields that shimmered like liquid light. The squad spread out, confident. The jungle answered with silence. Then a low rumble, distant and guttural, rolled through the mist. Yulrek froze. His secondary scanner flashed, a second signal. Smaller humanoid. Moving toward the apex predator. What in the void is that? One of the soldiers hissed. Another beast, said another. Prey. No, Yulrek said, narrowing his eyes. It's walking upright. The jungle parted. Out stepped a man. He was lean, sunburned, and dressed in a mix of scavenged armor and torn expedition fabric. A long rifle hung loosely in one hand, though it wasn't raised. His other hand brushed away vines as if he'd walked this path 100 times. Every Wrath rifle swiveled toward him. Identify yourself, Yulrek ordered. The man stopped just short of the trap perimeter. His voice, when it came, was quiet but carried easily through the humid air. Captain Elias Ward. Ranger Corps. Or what's left of it. One of the hunters sneered. Human? You're far from your nursery world. Elias looked unimpressed. Yeah. And you're far from your sense of self-preservation. Bold for prey, Yulrek said, tilting his head. We seek the apex predator of this planet. Step aside and we'll let you live. Elias's gaze drifted across their formation, noting weapon placements, the faint hum of energy shields. His expression shifted from caution to amusement. You're hunting that thing? He chuckled softly. You don't have the faintest idea what you're walking into. The insult landed like a slap. The squad bristled. One raised his weapon, but Yulrek gestured for restraint. He wanted to understand this strange, unarmored man who stood so casually in the death world's heart. Then enlighten us, Yulrek said. Elias stepped forward, boots sinking slightly in the damp soil. His eyes flicked to the hovering snare drones. You think nets and gravity locks can hold it? That armor of yours will just make the meat harder to chew. One of the soldiers barked a laugh. Your stories won't scare us, human? Elias looked past him into the jungle's darkness. Not trying to scare you. His tone softened. Just warning you. The forest answered him. Every sound, the drone hum, the buzz of insects, even the wind, died at once. The quiet pressed like a weight. Then came the rustle, massive, deliberate. Something big was moving, branches cracking under invisible force. The hunters turned, scanners flaring red with motion. Contacts on all sides. The forest erupted in a chorus of growls, echoes bouncing off trees. Thermal readings glitched, motion detectors scrambled. Yulrek cursed, spinning his weapon. Then, nothing. Only one sound remained, slow, steady breathing behind the squad. They turned as one. A pair of golden eyes shone through the mist, higher than any soldier's helmet. Muscles coiled beneath matte black scales that caught the faintest gleam of starlight filtering through the canopy. The creature's silhouette was terrifying. A predator sculpted by eons of evolution to kill everything that moved. By the stars, one hunter whispered. Yulrek's hand trembled on his trigger. The beast took a step forward, then another, claws sinking into the earth without a sound. It tilted its head, not at them but at Elias. The human didn't move. He only lifted a hand, palm outward. The apex predator stopped. The wrath froze. For a long moment, the jungle held its breath. Then, impossibly, the monster lowered its massive head, pressing its snout against Elias's hand like an obedient hound greeting its master. Ulrich's throat went dry. That's impossible. Elias scratched behind one of the creature's ear ridges. You wanted the apex predator? He said softly. You're looking at it. Then what are you? Ulrich whispered. Elias's eyes met his, calm and faintly pitying. The reason it doesn't eat you. The beast's low rumble filled the clearing again, deeper this time, a sound of warning. The hunters, armored and armed to the teeth, suddenly looked very small. Elias stepped back, hand still resting against the creature's hide. You've made a mistake coming here. It doesn't like strangers. Especially loud ones. The soldiers' composure fractured. They aimed weapons out of reflex, targeting sensors locking onto the predator. Elias's tone hardened. Don't. But they fired. Bolts of plasma tore through the fog, sizzling against the creature's hide, and did nothing. The shots dispersed like heat over liquid metal. The predator roared, the sound so violent the air seemed to vibrate. In a blur of motion, it vanished into the mist. Screams followed. Short, sharp, final. The hunters fired wildly, their formation breaking. One by one, their signals blinked off Ulrich's HUD. He staggered backward, panic clawing at him. Through the chaos, Elias stood unmoving, eyes cold. When the jungle fell silent again, only Ulrich remained. He stared at the human across the clearing. You control it? Ulrich gasped. Elias shook his head. No. You don't control something like this. His voice dropped to a near whisper. You earn its respect. The mist swirled between them, glowing faintly under alien moonlight. Somewhere behind Elias, the predator's shadow loomed again, silent, patient. Elias turned, resting a hand on the creature's flank. You came hunting the apex predator, he said without looking back. But you forgot one thing. Ulrich's voice was barely audible. What? Elias met his gaze, a faint smile curving his lips. You're not the hunters here. The beast's growl rolled through the forest like thunder, and then both human and monster vanished into the fog. Ulrich sank to his knees, his armor dripping with condensation and fear. The jungle swallowed the last echoes of the human's voice, leaving only silence, an ancient silence that whispered a truth older than stars. On Varn 9, the apex predator wasn't the monster. It was the man who could tame it. Dawn crept reluctantly over Varn 9, staining the mist gold and red as if the jungle itself bled beneath the light. Smoke rose from the clearing where the hunt had ended. Charred fragments of armor lay strewn among claw marks deep enough to hold rainwater. Commander Ulrich sat bound to a tree trunk, his helmet cracked, his pride shattered. Elias Ward crouched a few feet away, turning a metal canister in his hands. The man looked nothing like the monster the galaxy whispered about. His face was human, lined, tired, streaked with old scars that spoke of endurance more than violence. His calmness was unnerving, the quiet kind that came from someone who had seen everything worth fearing and survived it. You still breathing? Elias asked, voice steady, almost casual. Ulrich glared. You think this will save you, human? My people will return for me. They can try. Elias set the canister down beside a small, flickering fire. But Varn 9 doesn't play fair. Neither do I. The alien tugged against the bindings, woven vines coated in resin that tightened with every movement. Primitive but effective. You trained that creature. How? Elias chuckled softly. Trained? That's generous. You don't train a hurricane. You survive it long enough for it to notice you're still standing. He rose and walked to the edge of the camp. Beyond the trees, the jungle swayed with restless life. Somewhere out there, Thursday prowled, keeping silent watch. Elias felt its presence more than he heard it, a low pressure at the back of his mind, like the hum of distant thunder. 5 years ago, Elias said, still facing the forest, I was part of an exploratory mission. Terra Union wanted a foothold in this sector. Mineral-rich, unclaimed, deadly. We thought we could handle it. He turned, his expression unreadable. We were wrong. Ulrich listened despite himself. Humans were often rash, but this one spoke with the gravity of someone who'd buried more than comrades. The storm hit on day 3, Elias continued. Wiped our dropship off the map. Half the crew died in the crash. The rest didn't last a week. The plants here breathe poison at night, and the insects are small enough to slip past armor seals. I was the last one standing. He crouched again, staring into the fire. That's when I met Ka Thursday. Even the name seemed to darken the air. It didn't come roaring out of the trees like you'd expect. It watched. 4 days. Waiting. Testing. I'd wake up to footprints bigger than my torso. Dead animals left near the camp. It was measuring me. Elias's voice dropped to a murmur. And when it finally showed itself, I didn't run. I couldn't. I was done running. Yulrek's mandibles clicked faintly. You fought it. I tried. Elias smiled without humor. It could have ended me a dozen times. But something stopped it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe respect. Maybe it saw the same thing I did, another survivor who wouldn't die easy. He stood, stretching, every motion controlled. So we made a deal, though neither of us ever said it. I learned its territory. Stopped hunting me. I scavenged what tech I could from the wreck and built something that passed for shelter. In return, Ka Thursday kept the jungle quiet. You domesticated it. Elias turned sharply. No. I adapted. That's what humans do. The rest of you see monsters and think control is strength. We learn to live beside them, and that's why we're still around. Yulrek tried to mask his unease with arrogance. It's only a matter of time before it turns on you. Maybe, Elias admitted. But 5 years says otherwise. The alien's gaze flicked toward the shadows between the trees. Why didn't it kill me? Elias looked thoughtful. Because I told it not to. The simple statement landed heavier than any boast. Yulrek's mind raced to make sense of it. How could a beast bred from evolution's cruelty obey a word? There was no genetic control, no neural leash, no implant, just understanding. Elias extinguished the fire with a twist of soil. You came here to prove dominance. You thought if you trapped the apex predator, you'd rise in your hierarchy. But you never asked why no one ever succeeded before. He glanced over his shoulder. Because Ka Thursday doesn't tolerate arrogance. And this planet doesn't forgive it. Yulrek's composure cracked. Then why spare me? Elias hesitated before answering. Because you might be smart enough to carry a message. A low vibration rippled through the ground. The vines binding Yulrek trembled. The jungle grew darker, as if it sensed movement too large for comfort. From the treeline emerged the faint outline of Ka Thursday, vast, graceful, silent. Its golden eyes burned through the mist, locking onto Yulrek with a predator's patience. The commander's pulse quickened. His instincts screamed to flee, but his limbs wouldn't obey. Elias placed a hand on the creature's flank, and it immediately settled, muscles rippling beneath black scales. This is what you wanted to catch, Elias said quietly. A mind older than your empires. It's not an animal. It's the balance this world built to keep itself alive. You came to break that balance. Yulrek swallowed hard. Then why do you protect it? Elias's expression softened, almost weary. Because it saved me. Because for all its teeth and fury, it knows something your kind doesn't, when to stop killing. The alien looked away, shame flickering across his features. Elias crouched again, slicing through the vines with a makeshift blade. You'll live. Maybe long enough to remember that. Yulrek rubbed his wrists, disbelief warring with confusion. You're releasing me? Not exactly. You'll have to make it to the ridge. If you survive the jungle, tell your Dominion what you saw here. Tell them this planet already has an owner. Ka Thursday's head lowered until its eyes were level with the alien's. Yulrek froze as the creature inhaled his scent, a slow, deliberate warning. Then it turned away, dismissing him. Elias nodded toward the east. Go before it changes its mind. The commander stumbled backward, retreating into the mist without another word. His boots splashed through mud and roots until his figure disappeared completely. When the forest swallowed him whole, Elias leaned against a tree, exhaling slowly. Ka Thursday rumbled beside him, a sound that was neither threat nor comfort, something in between. Yeah, Elias murmured, glancing toward the thinning fog. I know. They'll be back. They always are. The creature's golden eyes glimmered faintly, unblinking. Elias reached out, resting his palm against the rough hide. Let them come. Maybe this time they'll learn what apex really means. The jungle answered with a distant roar, one not entirely Ka Thursday's. Something else had stirred beyond the valley, something vast, alien, and moving closer. Elias's hand tightened on his rifle as the light faded to gray. Looks like peace never lasts long around here, he said quietly. Come on, partner. Let's make sure the next ones are smarter than the last. Ka Thursday growled low in agreement, and together they vanished into the rising mist, leaving behind only silence and the faint, uneasy echo of a legend growing teeth. The jungle burned with quiet color as dusk descended, violet mist curling through massive roots, leaves trembling under the whisper of unseen wings. Elias Ward crouched beside the ruins of a signal relay, its blinking light throwing fractured shadows across his face. He worked with patient precision, rewiring its power cell into a compact detonator. The silence around him was deceptive. Varnax's calm always meant something was watching. Cothursday moved through the foliage in slow, deliberate circles. Each step was near soundless, claws sinking into damp soil. The predator's presence was both shield and reminder. This planet had teeth and Elias had learned to bite back. He adjusted the detonator's calibration, then spoke without looking up. "They're coming again." Cothursday's golden eyes flickered toward the horizon. A deep, guttural rumble vibrated through its chest, enough to shake a few leaves loose from the branches above. "I know," Elias said. "They never learn." Hours earlier, Yulrek's transmission had cut through the atmospheric interference like a knife. The surviving commander had done exactly what Elias expected, called for reinforcements. Now the Dominion's finest would descend from orbit, armed with every weapon their pride could buy. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, standing to survey the valley below. Between jagged cliffs and swaying vines lay the skeleton of an old mining outpost, long abandoned. Its cracked domes and corroded pipelines glimmered faintly in the dying light. That would be their landing zone. The terrain was open enough for them to think they had control, and just treacherous enough for Elias to prove otherwise. He spoke again, quieter. "We're not fighting them head-on this time. We guide them." Cothursday's tail swept the ground, carving a line in the dirt. "Yeah," Elias murmured, smiling faintly. "That's the path. Good thinking." The predator tilted its head, almost curious. It didn't understand words so much as tone and intent. Over years, Elias had learned how to talk in rhythms it understood. Firm commands, soft acknowledgments, silences that carried meaning. It wasn't ownership. It was conversation. By nightfall, the forest came alive with the subtle hum of engines. Dozens of Dominion dropships pierced the sky, cutting through the clouds like molten spears. Their searchlights swept the terrain in surgical arcs. The Wrath were methodical, each squad moving in formation, each drone scanning for anomalies. They had numbers, technology, arrogance. Elias had patience. From his perch in the branches, he watched the first units fan out across the valley floor. The hunters carried new equipment: resonance cages, molecular nets, dampeners designed to disable biological energy fields. All aimed for one purpose: to capture, not kill. He thumbed the detonator and whispered, "They want a trap? Let's give them one." The relay core exploded in the distance, a bloom of blue flame rising above the canopy. It was small enough to seem accidental, yet large enough to draw attention. Immediately the formation shifted toward it, disciplined but predictable. Elias grinned. Cothursday moved ahead, slipping through the foliage like living smoke. Elias followed, silent as a ghost, using the terrain's memory to his advantage. Routes he'd mapped, ravines he'd dug, tunnels carved by rain and time. Every inch of this place had been shaped by his survival. The Dominion soldiers reached the blast site minutes later. Scanners whirred, armor lights flickered, and one of the officers raised a hand. Energy residue confirmed. Human tech signature. "Fan out," their commander ordered. "He's close." The jungle answered with stillness. Then, faintly, came the low, rhythmic pulse of movement. "Contact," someone asked, turning in place. Before the commander could reply, the ground beneath them gave way. The soil collapsed into a narrow pit. One Elias had reinforced with sharpened metallic shards scavenged from wreckage. The first two soldiers fell screaming, armor grinding against the spikes. The rest fired blindly into the mist. Blue plasma cut through the dark, slicing apart nothing but vines. Elias stepped from behind a fallen tree, rifle raised but calm. He shot once, just once, hitting a fuel canister one of them carried. The explosion lit the clearing in blinding white. When the flash faded, half their unit was gone. The others stumbled back, panic spreading like disease. "Fall back. Regroup." They turned to run, and found Cothursday waiting. The creature moved with impossible grace for its size, all muscle and silence. It struck from the flank, claws rending through reinforced armor like paper. The jungle filled with screams and static. Each death was swift, almost merciful. Elias moved closer to the edge of the carnage, eyes scanning. This wasn't vengeance, it was warning. "They never listen," he muttered under his breath. By the time the last soldier fell silent, only one remained, the field commander, armored in gold-trimmed plating, trembling but defiant. His weapon flickered in and out of charge, plasma coil overheating. Elias approached him slowly. You must be the one in charge now. The alien spat, mandibles flaring. You think this is victory? More will come. Probably, Elias admitted. But fewer each time. The commander raised his weapon. Elias didn't flinch. Thursday appeared behind him, eyes glowing in the half-light, breath heavy with heat. The alien froze, realization dawning too late. Elias's tone softened. You all make the same mistake. You think strength means control. Out here it means knowing when to let go. He lowered his rifle and stepped back. Run. The commander hesitated, fear and pride warring in his eyes. When Thursday shifted its weight forward, he bolted into the jungle, crashing through the underbrush until the noise faded. Elias exhaled and turned toward the creature. That'll spread the message faster than killing him. Thursday blinked once, then lowered its head until it rested near his shoulder. Elias reached out, brushing away a speck of blood from its scales. Good work. Quick and clean. The night had grown darker, the stars veiled by drifting smoke from the wreckage below. Elias watched the sky for a long time, noting the faint, distant glimmer of orbiting ships. He knew this wasn't the end. The Dominion would regroup, analyze and return with stronger forces. They always did. But beneath that knowledge, a deeper thought lingered, unease, sharp and quiet. Thursday had moved differently tonight. More precise. More coordinated. Not just reacting to his signals but anticipating them. The creature was learning, evolving alongside him. He crouched, meeting its gaze. You're getting smarter, aren't you? Thursday's tail flicked once, slow and deliberate. Its pupils constricted, reflecting the faint firelight. Yeah, Elias said softly. That's what worries me. The jungle had gone eerily still again, as if even the world held its breath. Somewhere far beyond the cliffs, a new sound rolled across the horizon. A mechanical hum, low and constant, unlike anything native to Varn 9. Reinforcements larger this time. Elias rose to his feet, slinging his rifle across his back. Round 3, he murmured. Let's make it count. Thursday turned its head toward the distant glow, body tensing like a coiled spring. Together, man and beast melted into the shadows once more, preparing for the next wave, two predators against a galaxy convinced they were prey. And in the silence that followed, the jungle itself seemed to whisper their names, as though the planet had chosen its true apex pair. Ash drifted through the jungle like falling snow, glowing faintly under the dim violet light of Varnix's twin moons. The battle was over, but the silence that followed carried the weight of something unfinished. Smoke curled through broken trees, the remains of Dominion ships burning in quiet defiance of the planet's humidity. Elias Ward walked through the aftermath with the slow gait of a man who had seen victory too many times to mistake it for peace. Thursday moved beside him, its movements unhurried but alert, golden eyes scanning the trees. The creature's scales shimmered where the firelight touched them, reflecting crimson streaks that made it seem carved from the planet itself. It didn't roar or bare its teeth, it didn't need to. The jungle already knew who ruled it. Elias knelt beside a fallen Wrath soldier, brushing a hand over the alien's armor. It was still warm. The Dominion's insignia glowed faintly across the chest plate, symbols of a species that believed control was the same as safety. He looked at the corpse, then at Thursday. You ever wonder, he said softly, if we're just doing what they are? Trying to claim something that doesn't belong to us. The creature tilted its head, uncomprehending but attentive. Didn't think so, Elias muttered, pushing himself upright. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Every muscle in his body ached. But rest was a luxury for people who didn't have to earn it. He glanced toward the ridge where he'd spotted movement earlier. A shimmer of light pulsed faintly through the fog, too steady to be natural. Someone was still alive. He climbed the slope slowly, Thursday following close behind. At the top the air grew clearer. The valley below glistened with debris, torn metal, fractured drones, the occasional flicker of a dying signal beacon. Near one of the wrecked transports knelt a figure. Commander Yulrek. His armor was cracked, faceplate shattered, but his posture was defiant. He had dragged himself free of the wreckage, one arm bleeding where the plating had fused into his skin. When he saw Elias approach, he laughed, a dry, brittle sound. You really think this ends here, human? Elias stopped a few meters away, rifle lowered. No, he said. That's the problem. Yulrek's mandibles twitched, his voice trembling between exhaustion and pride. You killed 2 squats. You and that monster. The Dominion will send a fleet next time. I know, Elias said. They'll keep coming until someone teaches them why they shouldn't. Ulrich spat into the dirt. You think you're better than us? Elias didn't answer immediately. He studied the alien, the firelight flickering across both their faces. No, he said finally. Just older in the right ways. We've had practice being the weaker ones. You learn things when the universe keeps trying to wipe you out. The alien's voice dropped low. And what did you learn? Elias stepped closer, eyes steady. That survival isn't about domination. It's about balance. About knowing when to stop fighting and start understanding. He nodded toward Ka Thursday. That's what saved me. I didn't conquer this planet. I listened to it. Ulrich sneered. You talk like philosophers. But you're killers like the rest of us. Elias sighed. Yeah, we are. But we know when killing stops helping. For a moment, the only sound was the crackle of distant fires. Ka Thursday shifted its weight, the ground trembling beneath its bulk. Its head lowered until its eyes met Ulrich's, unblinking. The commander's breath caught. Even broken, his instincts screamed at him to run. Elias raised a hand. The creature stopped instantly. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through pride. That's what you don't get, Elias said quietly. You think control means power. But real power, he gestured toward Ka Thursday, is respect. It listens because it chooses to. Ulrich forced a weak laugh. And you think that makes you safe? One day it'll turn on you. Maybe, Elias replied. But until then I'll trust it more than anyone who calls themselves civilized. The alien's composure cracked. He looked away, his voice barely more than a whisper. You should have let it kill me. Elias crouched beside him, meeting his gaze. No. You're going to leave this place alive. You'll tell your Dominion what you saw here, that the apex predator already has a partner, and the universe should think twice before sending hunters again. Ulrich stared at him with something between hatred and awe. They won't believe me. Good, Elias said. That'll make the next lesson easier. He turned to leave, but the commander's voice stopped him. What? Why protect something that could destroy you? Elias looked back. Because everything capable of destruction deserves the chance to choose not to. He descended the ridge without another word, Ka Thursday following silently. Behind them, the wounded commander remained kneeling, the firelight flickering over his ruined armor. He had come to hunt a beast and found a truth instead, a truth that would haunt him longer than any scar. As Elias reached the jungle floor, the first raindrops began to fall. Steam rose from the ground, carrying the sharp scent of ozone and ash. He tilted his face upward, letting the rain wash the grime and blood away. Ka Thursday stood beside him, unmoving, rain streaking down its massive form like rivers of mercury. Think he'll survive? Elias asked quietly. The creature made a low, vibrating sound, half question, half indifference. Yeah, Elias said. Me neither. He stared out toward the dark horizon where thunder rolled like distant machinery. The Dominion fleet would regroup. They'd analyze every failure, every death, every mystery. And when they came again, they'd come in force. But this time he'd be ready. Ka Thursday shifted closer, lowering its head until its breath warmed the air around him. Elias placed his hand against its jaw, feeling the slow pulse beneath the scales. The rhythm matched his own heartbeat. Looks like we're not done yet, he murmured. But we've made our point. Ka Thursday's golden eyes glimmered faintly, a reflection of the twin moons breaking through the clouds. Elias smiled at the sight, tired but genuine. You know, he said, if the galaxy ever figures out what we really are, they'll stop calling us predators. The creature exhaled softly as if amused. Yeah, Elias said. They'll start calling us something worse. The rain thickened, washing the battlefield clean as the pair vanished back into the jungle's embrace. Above them, the storm clouds gathered again, heavy with promise and consequence. And somewhere beyond the clouds, in the black reach of space, the Dominion listened to the silence of Varn 9 and began to wonder who the hunters truly were. Weeks had passed since the Dominion's retreat, but the echoes of Varn IX's fires lingered in every corner of the galaxy. Rumors traveled faster than signals. The human who walked beside the apex predator, the one who had outwitted the Wrath Hunters and survived the planet's fury. On the outer rim, at a bustling orbital outpost, stories of Elias Ward had begun to harden into legend. Inside a council chamber of the Wrath Dominion, Commander Ulrich stood before the elders, his armor scuffed, his mandibles quivering with restraint. He recounted every detail with careful exaggeration, aware that disbelief would follow him if he faltered. The human, he said, voice low, controls the apex predator. Not with chains or weapons but with understanding. He walks beside it like a partner, not a master. The counselors murmured, disbelief mingled with intrigue. One elder clicked his mandibles sharply. Impossible. No species has ever tamed such a creature. Apparently this one did, Ulrich insisted. And we have proof. He activated a holofeed. Across the projection, Elias and Cathursday moved through the jungle, silent and deliberate. The apex predator's golden eyes glimmered in the half-light as it navigated trees and ravines with a precision that belied its size. Elias led it effortlessly, signaling with subtle gestures. The council fell silent. Even the most skeptical among them could not deny the bond displayed. It was not obedience, they could sense the mutual respect, the recognition of strength and intelligence. Far from the political tension of the council, Elias and Cathursday had established a temporary base on the edge of the jungle. Elias studied a star map, fingers tracing possible systems rich with uncharted predators. Cathursday lay nearby, tail coiled and eyes unblinking, watching every movement as though it understood more than it should. You ready for this? Elias asked softly, voice almost a whisper. Cathursday rumbled low in response. Elias grinned. I like that answer. Means you're ready for anything the universe throws at us. The planet was quiet now, almost deceptive in its serenity. But Elias knew better. Every predator he had faced, every challenge he had survived, taught him that stillness was never permanent. The apex predator had endured longer than most species, and so had he. Together they were the apex of a system designed to crush lesser beings. A faint signal flickered through his communicator. He ignored it at first, expecting another patrol, another drone seeking to confirm the Dominion's losses. The pulse persisted, deliberate and urgent. Elias scanned the readout, brow furrowing. The signal originated not from a hunting party, but from deep space, a vessel of unknown design, moving with precision toward Varn 9. You never rest, do you? He muttered. Cathursday's head lifted, ears swiveling toward the horizon. The predator's muscles coiled as though anticipating the approaching danger, a silent readiness that Elias could feel in his bones. The unknown vessel entered orbit, its hull reflecting starlight like polished obsidian. It was unlike anything Elias had catalogued, sleek, angular, and silent. The sensors indicated heavy weaponry and advanced shielding, far beyond Dominion capabilities. Whoever commanded it knew the planet's dangers and had calculated the risk. Elias crouched beside Cathursday, voice steady. Looks like we've got company. Ready for round 2? Cathursday exhaled, a low vibrating sound that resonated through the ground. Elias reached out, hand resting on the creature's thick hide. Then let's remind them who owns this jungle. As the ship's shadow stretched across the clearing, Elias and Cathursday moved into position. He activated the perimeter traps he had constructed over weeks. Hidden pitfalls, reinforced natural barriers, and decoys that mimicked movement. Every measure was calculated, every detail tuned to channel intruders into the paths he controlled. The vessel's first wave of scouts descended in pods, scanning for life forms. They expected resistance, but nothing could have prepared them for Cathursday. The predator emerged from the treeline like living shadow, silent and massive. Each movement was purposeful, calculated, lethal. The scouts froze, unsure if they faced a beast or the embodiment of the planet itself. Elias watched from the canopy, rifle ready but secondary to Cathursday's presence. His heart beat in tandem with the predators, their rhythm honed by years of shared survival. When the first scout fired, Cathursday moved with astonishing speed, striking from angles that no one could anticipate. Plasma bolts scattered harmlessly against scaled hide, while claws tore through mechanical plating. The intruders reeled, and Elias advanced, calling precise commands in low tones that only Cathursday seemed to understand fully. The predator flanked, nudged, and cornered the scouts with unnerving intelligence. Every strike was deliberate, designed to disable rather than destroy, a lesson in controlled dominance. One scout tried to flee, pods activated, but Elias anticipated its path. He fired a compact rail charge, severing the pod's tether mid-ascent. The craft spiraled out of control, crashing into a ravine below. The remaining scouts hesitated, scanning the jungle for the human who moved unseen among shadows. When they saw Elias finally, he stood atop a ridge, silhouetted by lightning that danced across distant clouds. His expression was calm, almost casual, but the air around him carried tension sharp enough to cut steel. You thought the apex predator was your threat, Elias said, voice carrying across the clearing. You never realized the true apex is the one who can command it. The remaining scouts faltered, indecision rippling through them. Cathursday growled low, muscles coiled and ready. Elias raised his hand once, the universal gesture he had learned to perfect. The predator obeyed, taking a step forward, its presence alone enough to freeze every scout in place. Elias's eyes met the vessel's cameras, distant but visible through the holographic feed. "You came hunting monsters," he said softly, "but the universe has a funny way of flipping the rules. Here, the monster chooses its master, and its master chooses the lesson." The intruders retreated, their pods faltering, engines screaming as they climbed into orbit. Elias watched them go, Cathursday's low rumble vibrating through the clearing like approval. He crouched beside the predator, brushing dust from its scales. "We've made our point," he murmured. "And they'll think twice before returning. For now." Cathursday pressed its massive head against his shoulder, a gesture of trust and partnership that spoke louder than any words. Elias smiled faintly. "Ready to move on?" The predator's tail swept the ground in response, signaling assent. Together they melted into the shadows, leaving behind a jungle that would remember their passage, a galaxy that would whisper their names, and a legend that had grown teeth and claws of its own. Above, the storm clouds parted briefly, revealing the distant glimmer of stars. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the Dominion and others like it would debate their next move. But for Elias Ward and Cathursday, the lesson was clear. The apex predator is not the one who kills, but the one who earns loyalty, commands respect, and moves with the universe's rhythm. And as they vanished into the mists of Varn 9, the night itself seemed to murmur the same truth. Humans are the real apex predators.